Hey tubers, I am completely miserable, San Diego. So, if you can't tell already by my visage, I have quite the pallor going on. Stringy hair. I don't think it's just because it's a little hot down here. I've been sick all fucking weekend. I called in tonight. I struck a fever of 103, just like in the Foreigner song. Friday, when I woke up. I slept all weekend long. Wanted to make a video. Felt like complete dog shit. Feeling a little bit more spirited to do so, but looking at the stack of stuff to talk about in front of me, it's going to be quite the undertaking. But you know what? I ain't scared. So we're listening to a band that I've never heard of and haven't seen on anybody's 2017 list so far or whatever. This band, All Hell. The name of the record is The Grave Alchemist. Not the biggest fan of the cover art. Maybe if it was a Ravenloft module, I'd be into it, but whatever. The music's awesome. To read the hype sticker, and I can't say I really disagree with it at all. It's influenced as much by Gothic literature, weird fiction, and visual aestheticism as by other music. The Grave Alchemist is a fuming mixture of black thrash, rock and roll, and first wave black metal with an undercurrent of dark punk and death rock. Gave it one spin in the car already. I don't know about the death rock side of things so much. I think the guy gets a little eldritchy with the voice, gets a little eldritchian, but beyond that, didn't really see that so much. But again, cursory spin. I'm going to start this off with a collection update. A lot of this will be cursory spin impressions because I bought a ton of shit and I just want to talk about it, you know. I can always go back on what I said, you know, and go, oh, it's totally wrong. It doesn't sound like that at all. But I just want to kick things off because pretty much every update I do until the end of the summer is going to be me talking about collection updates and then a subject because I have so much new shit, which I'm totally excited about. But you know, I'm going to have to lay off on the buying shit because I went nuts with Bind Rune. I went nuts with $20 spin. I missed buying stuff from Armageddon so bad because I haven't had a chance to go to the physical brick and mortar store that I ordered a bunch from them on Discogs. I had a bunch of need-to-haves classics that I picked up. Got some Amazon stuff, but I got to be a good boy. I still have plenty of my tax return left, and it's time to put it away for a rainy day. Hey. Alright, so Eric Bauer recommended a couple of CDs to me. He recommended the tapes, but I picked up the discs. These were cheap. These were really cheap. They were like $5 each plus a couple bucks in shipping from Mark Riddick, the guy who does that wonderful art you'd see on a lot of bands' album covers and stuff. He does his own little company, his own little label. This is a split between Nucleus and Macabra. Nucleus is real cool. They're definitely from the Children of Voivod kind of time ghoul, blood incantation school of things, you know, off-kilter, technical riffs that kind of spin off in weird directions. You know, as you can see, they've even got the kind of font a band like that would have, but I think they have their own secure foothold and who they sound like. They don't really sound like blood incantation. The songs are shorter, for example. They're really great. And Macabra is super unique. It's Mark Riddick's band. I also received their full length To the Bone. Mark was kind enough to throw in a jewel case version of this and this cool flat version. I think I ordered the jewel case version. I've got that in the car. But it's got all these cool cards. Took it out of the wrapper so you guys didn't have to watch me reload that. You're welcome. But this is super unique. To the point where it's going to take me actually using my brain to describe it. They utilize a certain doomy element that uses harmony with a lead guitar that isn't doing noodling, blazing solos, but it's just harmonizing over it. And it's got I'm no gearhead, nor am I a musician, but it's got some kind of a weird flange or echo effect on it that just gives it this super cosmic yet sort of dungeony kind of vibe to it that's just fucking out of this world, literally. It's great. And then they break it up with some thrash riffing here and there, some, you know, old school death metal kind of stuff, but there's it's got a real unique flair to it. I don't know why there aren't more people talking about Macabra, you know, with all this OSDM stuff being popular these days, but yeah, Macabra is fucking awesome. So, as I mentioned, I wanted to dive headfirst into the bind rune stuff, and it's kind of like learning to fly before you can walk, sort of thing. Because there's a few basic heavy hitters in like classic Norwegian black metal that I haven't really listened to extensively, and I'll get to that in a second. And here I am trying to get into all this super expansive, progressive black metal, and it's great, but it's a lot to take on. So, you know, pardon my ignoramus description of this kind of shit, but I figured I'd start at the beginning with Panopticon. And right away, I mean, both discs each, a couple of spins in the car. Austin completely knocked my socks on my ass, to quote David Cross. Particularly on Social Disservices, the second disc on here, the second record that was remastered for this, it really captures the whole, like, scary side of mental health and, you know, the whole social services situation. You know, I've kind of barely touched that world a little bit just through acquaintances and people that I've known and stuff like that, people that I've dated or whatever, and I mean, some of the stuff is just haunting and scary with, like, kids crying and everything. The music itself, when it's speedy, it doesn't seem all that different than a lot of classic second wave black metal. It's very good. It's the slower parts that are particularly kind of disturbing and heavy. There's some cool spiraling melodies, I think, on the second song in here that are great. Revisions of the Past, which I believe was recorded before, seems to be a little bit more typical of what I expected, with like a lot of more effects-laden pedal board. I don't know if shoegaze would be the proper term. I don't want to be insulting because I like it more than something like fucking Death Heaven, obviously, but it's got that weird flangey, you know, effects-laden kind of thing in parts, but it's also very, very much blazing black metal at the same time. Again, an uneducated person's first impression for what it's worth, but this is fantastic regardless. It's some of the best songwriting, and I am kicking myself for never checking this shit out. And I think a lot of that can be accredited just due to the fact that I was like, no, black metal should be raw and punkish. I only like a handful of bands. I'm into death metal, and any of that woodsy hippie shit, fuck it, man. You know, which is dumb. It's dumb. I mean, didn't have that extreme of a viewpoint, but I was just like, nah, it's not for me, you know. To the point where I've never even listened to Wolves in the Throne Room, and they didn't sound anything like I expected them to sound either when I checked them out. So I don't know, maybe I'll give them a listen too, but right now I'm head over heels for this bind rune shit. It's fucking rad. The other one that I've been spinning a lot lately has been Passage by Alda. I mentioned a few updates back, the Nekwachwen. That CD, that latest CD, is really great too. Already talked about that. This is another great one. Nature-based, very progressive, just so awesome. I feel like half of it's acoustic. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful record. The clear, clean vocals, they just hit me in a way that most clean vocals in a lot of black metal can't pull off. They don't come off as cheesy to me. They're kind of croony. They're soulful. Almost kind of like the guy from Dead Can Dance. I think they capture that spirit, but it doesn't really sound like him. Fucking amazing, amazing stuff. Yeah, I gotta be spinning this perpetually. Especially, it's not weather appropriate now, because it's, as you can probably see, fucking hot as balls down here. But even so, I'm gonna be spinning it a lot. And man, when autumn hits, bro, it's gonna be all the time. Switching gears a little bit, part of my Armageddon order. I needed to get this. I had this years ago, or at least listened to it a bunch years ago. Classic brutal thrash from Florida. They were part of the whole Florida death metal thing, even though they were just a really brutal thrash band. It's got Rob Barrett, who is in Malevolent Creation and Cannibal Corpse. You know, definitely for you if you're into Exhorder. You know, Sadus, Morbid Saint, stuff like that. Very fucking good, very well written. I'd say Sadus and Exhorder are probably just a hint above for me as far as how much I like it, but it's definitely mandatory shit if you like your thrash as heavy as it can possibly be without being death metal. Then we got the other Solstice. See what I did there? This is UK Doom, and unlike a lot of their contemporaries who from what I gained in interviews, they weren't too fond of in the Peaceville bands, like My Dying Bride and Paradise Lost. They didn't play a Death Doom style. This is straight up epic doom, comparable probably more to Solitude Aeternus than anything else. Another band that I don't understand doesn't get more credit for being like an amazing, influential 90s doom metal band. Just incredibly tasty melodies, incredibly tasty leads, you know, not always drudging, like a little bit triumphant in parts. Just fucking great. Like, why doesn't anybody fucking talk about this? Or maybe I haven't been reading the right message board. I don't read message boards really anymore, but maybe that's my problem. Just gotta start reading message boards again. Here's one. Yes, I'm familiar with it, but like the Mayhem, I decided I needed to pony up and own it. It's a digibook, Emperor in the Nightside Eclipse. I'm sure you're familiar. It's a nice presentation. Can't say no to a nice digibook. I do like this format. Disc 2 has an alternate mix and some kind of other recording session. It looks like the bonus tracks on the first CD are from a 7-inch. As the Shadows Rise 7-inch. I mean, you know it, you love it. Very thick, multi-layered, epic, kind of what started symphonic black metal, or one of the main influences on it. And just to round things out, I got the Emperor / Wrath of the Tyrant CD as well, just so I'd have all my bases covered, you know. I've been listening to this stuff more and more and more and more on Spotify for the past year and a half, and I figured it was time to pony up and actually, you know, support the music. Then, something entirely different here. This is ACME. What made me think of this was Ross Hodo, my buddy Ross there. I'll put his link in the description. And Mike Seatown got in a conversation on one of their channels, I don't know if it was Ross or Mike's, about this incredibly, I mean, I don't want to disservice this band by calling them metalcore. They're pretty hard to describe. We'll say 90s metallic hardcore, going back to the conversation John and I had when I had the guest on of what to call shit like this. But if you can imagine Slayer's meanest parts combined with a band from New York called Rorschach, who were a band that were one of the first hardcore bands to have those screamy, choked, strangulated vocals, kind of like Converge is known for, or at least classic Converge is known for. You might be getting kind of in the realm of ACME, even though ACME just has that certain recorded in hell quality. I challenge anybody, any grim cult fuckhead saying that no music made by hardcore kids or metalcore types or whatever can hold a candle to true metal. This will rip your fucking face off, man. Seriously. Some of the best shit right here. I'll put links. I'm not going to put links for Emperor and shit, but other stuff, I'll put links. Also, I was looking for recommendations. I've listened to a ton of this band on Spotify while playing Elder Scrolls. You know, it's a definite great soundtrack to that. They have so many records. I would just put on the radio, put on random records. I wanted to focus on a particular album, and I asked some fellas from the YouTuberverse who, you know, might know better than I, and they're like, oh, Stronghold, Summoning Stronghold, start with that one, and they were right. You know, this is, I mean, talk about dense and just soundtracky and symphonic and completely overwhelming. I mean, definitely the sound of battle, the sound of kingdoms crumbling. You know, so fucking good. It was definitely a good recommendation. Amazing stuff. Yeah, Glory Disappears, that's a fucking banger. Yeah, just awesome stuff right there. And I got a couple tapes, like I said, and this isn't even scratching the tip of the iceberg here. Got that Extremity finally everybody's talking about. This is awesome. You know, it's hard to impress me. I'll always listen to any kind of old school death metal release. Love the OSDM sound. I've been into it since when it was originally just when it came out in the early 90s. And I got in on the ground floor when it started to come back around 10 years ago with Miasmal and Detest Records and stuff. I'll always give it an ear. I love it. You know, it's a genre that I'm not picky about. I'll listen to anything you put in front of me. But it is hard to impress me. Extremity definitely fucking impresses me. It's funny because I never really listened to Vastum much. I've been meaning to get some of their stuff. They're kind of on the next time I do an order for $20 spin kind of list for me right now. I'm more familiar with these guys because of their podcast, which is called Death Metal Dads. I'll try to post a link for that as well. It is fucking hilarious. It's Shelby and Aesop. Shelby's in Vastum. Aesop was in Agalok. A bunch of other bands too. There's Vol, a few others that are escaping. Ludicra, and there's a member of Cretan and a member of Repulsion in here as well. There's the J card. Black tape. Yeah, the music is super catchy, very Carcass, very Autopsy, but Shelby and Aesop doing the Death Metal Dads podcast and talking about this project is the first I heard of it. Do yourself a favor, even if you're not a death metal dad like myself, listen to that fucking podcast. It is hilarious. It's not really so much just talking about death metal or talking about being a father. It's kind of all over the place. They shoot the shit, and they're two very funny guys. Shelby also does a great podcast called Illogical Contraption, which is kind of focused around conspiracy theories and like Art Bell kind of stuff, but it's very random and lots of fun. If you're into podcasts, that's my little plug for that. I also picked up this Rude, and it's pretty good. And going back to what I said, you know, like a lot of the classic death metal stuff, it's got great chunky riffing. It's very heavy, suitably guttural. But you know, will I spin this a bunch of times? I've got a bunch of releases like this from last year, and I know sooner or later I'll go, oh yeah, I want to listen to all these other bands that I checked out. Most of them are on tape. And I'll sit and spin them, but I mean, I feel like standing out in that type of genre is very difficult, and Extremity does that. Also, it doesn't hurt that it's a short record. You know, when you're in under a half an hour and you can hold my attention, you either gotta mix it up and do really interesting stuff like Alda, or you need to get quick to the point and get the fuck out to keep my eyes on the prize. Alright, so the subject, now that I've been talking about my collection update for 17 and a half minutes, was 10 inches, was the main subject that I wanted to get to. Ross talked about this. I figured a response video would be nice. I hope to drop him some props, maybe get him a few more subscribers, because I think he's an awesome YouTuber. And I think that 10 inches are something that probably haven't been talked about too much. I've only got a handful. I'll probably blaze through these quicker than I talked about my new acquisitions here, but you know, 10 inches opinions vary. I remember when I was a kid in the 90s, late 90s, I wanted to put out a 10 inch with my old band Class Action so bad because me and the guys in that band at the time were of the opinion that it was the perfect format for music. I guess because it wasn't too long, you know, you could fit enough songs, like if you're in a grind band or whatever, you could fit like 10 to 12 songs. You didn't wear out your welcome. But after a while, I mean, aesthetically, they don't fit in the right places. Luckily, they fit in my shelf, but they usually end up crammed next to your 12-inch LPs. I don't know, they kind of fell out of favor for me, but I have a bunch. So, and I wish I had the original packaging for this one. We'll start with this guy. This is the Pissed Officers Gerty Farish split. This is a band from the Boston area that used to play in Syracuse once in a while when I lived there. Gerty Farish were kind of boring, like no wave. They had like a crappy keyboard player. They weren't very interesting to me. I might change my opinion on them if I listen to them now. I haven't listened to this in 20 years. Pissed Officers were awesome. Spazzy, hyper-fast punk, real goofy. They handed out lyric sheets before the show and had like a big pad of paper with the song titles. And they'd be like, okay, everybody, sing along! Sing along! Excuse me, still sick. And they'd run around and run out of breath, and it was awesome. They were a really good time. The original packaging for this, that did have a cardboard outer sleeve, folded out into a rocket. And I kind of kicked myself, because I'm a very tactile, like, oh, I want to use that and make that. I don't have a collector mentality by nature, or at least I didn't then. I made the rocket and hung it up, and that is definitely not long, wasn't long for this world. I think I had it up in my room for about a year, and it's fucked. It's gone. Pretty cool. How to Get to Our House with a very inaccurate, I'll unfold that poster. No Moyen art there. Inaccurate map of the United States. Just weird, goofy art. Arty, but in a fun way. Kind of spazzy punk shit. City Thrills. This is power pop. You know, verging on punk rock. The most interesting thing of note about this band is Merle Allen from the Murder Junkies, from G.G. Allen's brother there, played bass. I'm not sure which one is him. Not going to try to figure it out right now. But I believe it's this guy with the glasses, actually, looking at the back here. But yeah, super high energy, good stuff. You know, again, I haven't spun it in forever. I believe it's on it's a cool label there. Star Rhythm Records out of Malden, Mass. Nice red. Yeah, it's fun, you know. Good for what ails you. Kind of in the spirit of stuff like Acme, like good quality proto-metalcore, whatever you want to call it. We got Mayday Staple Gun. I've talked about these guys before when I've gone through my 7-inch boxes. This is a little bit more slickly produced than the 7 inches. Longer songs. Sounding a little bit more like a typical late 90s, early 2000s metalcore band. Super evil and dark, though. It's a very good record. This was released on Stormstrike Records, which was a German label. There's a lot of interesting metallic hardcore coming out of Germany in the late 90s. Morser and Y and stuff like that. And then I got the Anatomia. This is a Shreds of Putrefaction. It's their demo pressed on 10-inch. This was on Nuclear War Now. This was the... I believe this was the Die Hard. Again, I used the patch. Yep, it's on green there. It's cool. You know, it's really rough sounding. Really, really rough sounding. From what I remember. I think it has a propulsion cover. Yep, Splattered Cadavers. But yeah, if you want your shit lo-fi, look no further here. It's almost unrecognizable compared to their LPs. But I liked it raw, just like ODB. We'll mention this again, the Rancid Let's Go, just because I think Damian Abraham mentioned it in his podcast. It's a cool way to learn about all these other bands that they played with. Let's see, you got Tilt, Citizen Fish, Creeps, John Henry West, Bug Out Society, Bouncing Souls, Avail. You know, it gave you a good idea of like what other bands were playing in the punk underground, even though this band was getting big on MTV. This was on White too. I don't think I mentioned that last time. But yeah, I've had this bad boy forever. Once in a while I'm feeling really nostalgic, I spin it. Another big nostalgic one for me. This is the first sheer terror I ever bought. Love Songs for the Unloved. Now this is a weird one. This is just on black. This was kind of like their downfall record, sort of like they, in a way, they signed to a major label. This is on Blackout. The vinyl was done on Blackout. Sorry for all the coughing. I'm still getting over getting sick. I still am sick, actually. I forget what the major they were on was. They were only on it for like a year. Completely in the whole wake of all the punk stuff that, you know, Green Day and all that, they got all these bands signed. This record was so weird because the stuff that gained them all their success was this like vicious metallic Celtic Frost influenced hardcore mixed with a good like undercurrent of ugly New York just grit, and they really expanded their horizons on this, and I don't see it as a bad thing. They had some songs that were almost straight up like oi anthemic kind of punk songs, and then they had some songs that were almost bordering on like Life of Agony, leaning almost a little bit towards nu metal, which I like anything Sheer Terror does. Like, I don't really care if what they sound like, because it's always them playing the music as long as Paul Bearer is involved. But this was definitely a weird one for them. But there's some great songs on here, especially the more up-tempo kind of punk songs on here. This was produced by Tommy Victor from Prong. And the sound, the production's also very, very clean compared to their previous records. But, yeah, Love Songs for the Unloved. And then I went through their back catalog and was like, holy shit, okay. This is one of the first comps I ever bought. Fallen upon deaf ears. This is another weird one. These are maybe that's the common thread with all my 10 inches. They're all fucking weird. There's something weird about all of them. This was on the Skullduggery label, whatever that was. They had actually a label catalog with a bunch of stuff on it, but I've never seen another record from this. But like you had crusty stuff on here, Nausea's on here, Drop Dead's on here. Two of my favorite Drop Dead songs, Survival and Bullshit, Subvert, Anti-Schism, like great stuff. But you also had Screeching Weasel, Spark Marker, who were like an early emo band, Vindictives, who I love, who are like another snotty kind of pop punk band. Some weird stuff that I don't even remember what it sounds like, Los Vampiros. I don't know, man. But this was a lot to wrap my head around, you know, at the time. A lot of different sounds to try to digest. Then we got, talk about great fucking 10 inches. Gordon Solie Motherfuckers Powerbomb Anthems Volume 1. Wrestling themed, fucking fast, scrappy ass hardcore. Led by Tony Erba. Tony Erba leading the charge. Spitting piss and venom and vitriol and barbs and anger. Just a part of that whole wave of thrashy hardcore punk in the late 90s and early 2000s. Same guy that I ranted and raved about being awesome in one of my top 25 punk records videos. He sang for that band Face Value. He was the mastermind behind Nine Shocks Terror. He's still doing it with a band called Fuck You Pay Me. This had a lot of like little nods to pro wrestling. Saw them live once at a reunion show at Chaos and Taos, and it was complete bedlam. Just foreign objects flying through the air. Somebody brought out a ladder. People were bleeding. A whole conga line of people stage diving feet first into the fucking audience. Oh, so much fun. But yeah, just pissed off stuff. Just calling out cops, calling out tough guys. Highly recommended if you like, almost like pissed off really fast, early to mid 80s youth crewish hardcore with an edge to it, and maybe a bit of Japanese hardcore influence. Best description I can come up with off the top of my fuzzy little head. We got No Time Left. I think I mentioned these guys also when I talked about Face Value because they did a really cool combination of like Motorhead and like, I don't want to say Youth of Today because there's a lot of bands I like more than Youth of Today, but we'll say Youth of Today or Bold or something like that. Just, you know, that fast power chordy kind of youth crew kind of riffing, but with throwing in some Motorhead groove to it, you know, some licks. And it's great. These guys were from Buffalo. Relatively short-lived. I think they were around for maybe 3 or 4 years. Singer was a friend of mine, really good dude. He still lives in Chicago now. Yeah, great stuff there. No Time Left. Links will all be below. Don't worry. Don't worry your pretty little head about it. I'll put your links down there. I've had this shrink on here forever. I should just take it off. More trouble than it's worth. Marty's losing his mind right now. I'm trying to pull this off. Alright, there we go. General Surgery, Necrology. I mean, if you don't know, pick it up if you like death metal, for fuck's sake. Guys from Dismembered doing a fucking amazing early Carcass imitation. That's it in a nutshell. It's fucking awesome, you know. This has a couple of bonus tracks. I don't know what they're exactly from, but the original release was a 7-inch. And this was, I don't know when this came out. Okay, recently, 2011 is when this came out. But yeah, Matty Karki and the boys paying tribute to symphonies mostly. Really, really, really good shit. And you know what? Everything I've heard by these guys reformed is cool too, in my opinion. I think this shit's all awesome all around. So yeah, get that. Get that if you like death metal. Get that if you like grind. Get that if you enjoy Surgery. And my favorite, Midnight. I think this is a perfect Midnight record. I like pretty much everything they've done. But this is just the perfect amount. You can throw this on, knock a few back, and just be ready for your evening. I mean, Black Rock and Roll and Vomit Queens alone are just enough to just send you to hell in a fucking handbasket. It's great. If you should know Midnight. If you don't, you know, it sounds like Venom if they could play their instruments. Somebody said that recently, and I think that's pretty fitting. And despite that, it's very good. Very fucking awesome. Venom worship, Motorhead worship. check it out if you haven't already. Yeah, so I don't know what about it exactly warped my perception of 10 inches, because there's a lot of good ones. I mean, there's some that I wish I still had, particularly the Charles Bronson Youth Attack one. There was a good Phobia one. I used to have a Fields of Shit one, which was a post-filth band. That 10-inch was really good. I always wanted the Blank 77 tanked and pogoed 10-inch. Kind of have no desire to own that anymore. That band blows. That's all I can think of off the top of my head right now. But there's some really good 10 inches out there. I think what pushed it over for me was that when I found out how they were manufactured, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I got the wrong information, but it certainly makes sense to me. To make a 10-inch, apparently you just have to press the record on a 12-inch and cut away the excess. And that just seems so fucking wasteful. I don't know. Something about that bothered me when I figured out that that was part of the process. Go figure, you know. Certain things stick in my craw. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention. I got this bad boy, too. Impaler Carnal Deity. Great UK death metal. I'll make it quick because I'm running out of voice. Great UK death metal. Sort of thrash-based riffs, but totally raw, pure death metal. What you'd expect from some good soil that gave us Bolt Thrower and the like. Kind of half-assed, but what are you going to do? Alright, I'm sweating buckets. Links will be in the description. And you guys have a good day, and God, wish me well. I want to be over this shit. Fuck.